Partygate, the affair about illegal celebrations during the lockdown, is about more than a few missteps. Never before has there been an investigation into a British Prime Minister for allegedly lying in contempt of Parliament. But Boris Johnson could also survive this crisis, unfortunately. Through his actions, Boris Johnson has not only damaged the government's credibility and the Prime Minister's office. With his shamelessness and the shameless lies, he stakes the self-image of British democracy and its foundations. He should resign and put an end to the agony. Partygate, as I said, has long been about more than just minor missteps. Many Conservative MPs seem to be finally getting the hang of it. That's why they resisted party pressure and agreed to an investigation by a parliamentary committee, a first in British history regarding a Prime Minister. Never before has a Prime Minister been investigated for alleged contempt of Parliament by blatant lying. It is the third investigation into Partygate. Sue Gray was investigating from the public administration. Scotland Yard was investigating and has already fined Boris Johnson, his wife Kerry, but also Finance Minister Rishi Sunak. More could and probably will follow, because Partygate is not about a single misstep, for example at Johnson's birthday party. In a total of 16 cases it is checked who violated the corona requirements at the seat of government at meetings with a lot of booze. No matter what you thought of the lockdown measures, those who had adopted them should comply with them in an exemplary manner. Boris Johnson should have fired every minister long ago for what he has done. As Prime Minister, however, he is both the accused and the judge in this affair. The public administration, that is Sue Gray, reports to the government, the police to the Interior Ministry, and the Prime Minister. His fate ultimately depends on the goodwill of the Conservative MPs and has been hanging by an increasingly thin thread for the past few days. Boris Johnson has a whopping 77 MPs in Parliament as a majority. Only if 15% of Tory MPs, that would be 54, voted for a no-confidence vote, he could be overthrown. And there are still not enough opponents in their own ranks, although their number is growing every day. In view of public opinion, do the Tories want to wait until the Privileges Commission, the Committee of Inquiry, the majority of which is made up of Conservative MPs, by the way, presents the report? That could last until autumn. It is precisely on this and on the lack of alternatives in his party that Boris Johnson seems to be building, who pretends to have nothing to hide and is making no move to resign. First, he would have to be formally found guilty of lying and thus of contempt of Parliament. Anyone who has followed the debates in the House of Commons has no doubts, definitely. 4/5 of the electorate and even the majority of Conservative voters think he's a liar. Only piecemeal did Johnson admit that was irrefutable. This behavior is typical of elite school students who lie in the principal's office until they are caught in a misdemeanor, all to avoid punishment. But Boris Johnson is no longer a little schoolboy, even if he behaves like one, but has had a disturbed relationship to the truth throughout his life. He was fired from the Times as a reporter for false quotes, and as a correspondent for the Daily Telegraph in Brussels, he regularly made up stories. Johnson lied about Brexit and the Northern Ireland Protocol. What's more, he polemicizes and provokes, most recently against the BBC and the Archbishop of Canterbury, who dared to criticize his agreement with Rwanda to deport refugees there. Can someone like that remain at the head of such an important country? As long as he can guarantee that he will remain in power, the palace revolution will probably not happen, despite all ethical and moral concerns. However, inflation, pandemics, poorly managed Brexit, and the constant exchange of management personnel mean that the British are now having doubts about his abilities. According to a YouGov survey, Labour is now more trusted in all areas of politics. And the Ukraine crisis? In the past too, the British have exchanged prime ministers in the midst of major crises. But who could replace him? Rishi Sunak is a Partygate perpetrator himself. His wife is not the most diligent taxpayer, and he has probably lost his claim to the Crown Prince. Secretary of State Liz Truss doesn't seem to have enough party support. Yet, or ever? Well, the Tories are really doing themselves a disservice by keeping Pinocchio Johnson in office any longer. However, For a lack of courage and a lack of alternative leadership among the Conservatives, Boris Johnson could also survive this crisis. Unfortunately, because in the end, democracy will be damaged and people's disenchantment with politics will increase rapidly. And probably, if this ends with a big bang, that could drive a lot of votes towards Nigel Farage. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.